Have you ever been told your health problems would disappear if you just lost weight? What if that advice is not only wrong, but actively harmful? What if the real problem is not fat bodies, but a culture that cannot see past body size? Aubrey Gordon, co-host of the Maintenance Phase podcast and creator of Your Fat Friend, has written a groundbreaking handbook that systematically dismantles 20 persistent myths about fat people. This book matters because anti-fat bias is everywhere, from doctors' offices to airplane seats, from family dinners to job interviews. Gordon brings together research, history, and her dozen years of community organizing to equip readers with the facts needed to counter these myths and fight for fat justice. Whether you live in a larger body or simply want to understand how weight stigma operates, this book will transform how you see bodies, health, and social justice. Myth 1. Being fat is a choice. Gordon shares a story from her college years when a stranger at a party approached her and said he needed to ask whether she had ever tried losing weight. He insisted it was not that hard and mansplained calories in, calories out as if it were simple science. He only stopped when she reassured him 3 times that she was still trying to lose weight. This encounter illustrates how people assume fatness results from laziness or poor choices. The reality, as Gordon explains, is that fat people have existed in every corner of the world, in every moment of history. We simply do not know why some people are fat and others are thin. The closer researchers get to an answer, the more complex the picture becomes. Body size results from an intricate interplay of genetics, environment, socioeconomic factors, medication side effects, disability, stress, trauma, and countless other variables that are largely outside individual control. A person grows up in a low-income neighborhood where fresh produce is expensive and hard to access. Their parents work multiple jobs, leaving little time for home-cooked meals. They develop a thyroid condition that goes undiagnosed for years because they cannot afford regular health care. They take medications that cause weight gain as a side effect. Calling their body size a choice ignores the web of circumstances shaping their life. Research from genetics experts shows that body weight is highly heritable, with studies suggesting 40 to 70% of weight variation is explained by genetic factors. This does not mean genes determine destiny, but it does mean simple willpower cannot override biological programming. Myth 2. Calories in, calories out works. Modern science has thoroughly debunked the idea of calories in, calories out, or that you need to create a 3,500 calorie deficit to lose a pound. Human metabolism is far more complex than a simple equation suggests. The body adapts to calorie restriction by slowing metabolism, increasing hunger hormones, and becoming more efficient at storing energy. Research reviews on exercise and weight loss show underwhelming results. A 2001 review found that intensive short-term exercise programs of under 4 months yielded a loss of 0.18 kilograms, or 0.4 pounds. Longer-term programs led to weight loss of 1/3 net amount, just 0.06 kilograms, or 0.14 pounds. These numbers reveal that exercise, while beneficial for health, is not an effective weight loss tool for most people. A person meticulously tracks every calorie, maintains a strict deficit, and exercises daily. They lose 30 pounds over 6 months, but their body fights back. Their metabolism slows by several hundred calories per day. Their hunger hormones surge. Within a year, despite continuing their habits, the weight returns. This is not personal failure, but biological reality. The body interprets sustained weight loss as starvation and activates powerful mechanisms to restore weight. Dr. Kevin Hall from the National Institutes of Health studied contestants from the Biggest Loser reality show and found that years after dramatic weight loss, their metabolisms remained suppressed. They burned hundreds of fewer calories per day than people who naturally weighed what they did, making weight maintenance nearly impossible without constant vigilance and restriction. Myth 3. Parents are responsible for their children's weight. Gordon describes this myth as one that particularly upset her, causing her to grieve after reading about it. The myth suggests that only bad parents let their children get fat. This harmful belief has led to children being removed from their families and placed in foster care, despite no evidence that this improves weight, health, or well-being. Parents face impossible pressures around their children's bodies. They are told to control what their kids eat, but not create food issues. They are blamed if their children are fat, but also blamed if they put children on diets. Meanwhile, factors like genetics, medication, disability, and the food environment play enormous roles that individual families cannot control. A mother with a fat child takes them to the pediatrician for a routine checkup. The doctor spends the entire appointment lecturing about weight, suggesting the mother is neglectful. The mother goes home feeling ashamed and starts restricting her child's food. The child develops anxiety around eating, begins sneaking food, and the relationship becomes fraught with tension. The intervention meant to help has created genuine harm while ignoring that the child is healthy, active, and growing appropriately for their individual body. Research shows that parental attempts to control children's eating often backfire, creating the very problems they aim to prevent. Children whose eating is restricted tend to eat more when food is available, lose touch with internal hunger cues, and develop unhealthy relationships with food. Myth 7. The BMI is an objective measure. Gordon provides nuanced explanations of why body mass index is not worth the ink it takes to print its three-letter abbreviation. The BMI was created in the 1830s by a Belgian mathematician and astronomer, not a physician. It was designed to study population trends, not assess individual health. Yet it has become the primary tool for categorizing bodies as normal, overweight, or obese. The BMI does not account for muscle mass, bone density, body composition, age, sex, race, or any individual variation. Elite athletes are often classified as overweight or obese because muscle weighs more than fat. The categories themselves are arbitrary. In 1998, the threshold for overweight was lowered, instantly reclassifying millions of Americans as overweight overnight without any change to their actual bodies or health. A bodybuilder with low body fat and high muscle mass gets classified as obese according to BMI. An elderly person with osteoporosis and muscle loss falls into the normal category despite serious health concerns. The tool treats vastly different bodies identically and provides no meaningful information about actual health status. Yet doctors, insurance companies, and employers use it to make consequential decisions about people's lives. The history of BMI categories reveals their arbitrary nature. The cutoffs were determined by committee, not by identifying natural breaks in health outcomes. When experts examine the relationship between BMI and mortality, they find that people in the overweight category often have the lowest mortality risk, a finding that contradicts the entire framework of obesity as disease. Myth 8. Doctors are unbiased. Healthcare providers hold the same anti-fat biases as the general population, and those biases directly impact the care fat patients receive. Studies show that doctors spend less time with fat patients, provide less information, and are less likely to order appropriate tests or screenings. Fat patients face assumptions that every health problem stems from weight, leading to dangerous delays in diagnosis. A woman visits her doctor complaining of persistent cough and shortness of breath. Without examining her lungs or ordering tests, the doctor attributes her symptoms to weight and prescribes weight loss. She returns multiple times over months with worsening symptoms, always receiving the same advice. Finally, she insists on tests and is diagnosed with lung cancer that has progressed to an advanced stage. The delay caused by weight bias may have cost her years of life. Research from the University of Connecticut Rudd Center for Food Policy and Health documents pervasive weight bias among healthcare providers. Even doctors who specialize in obesity medicine hold strong negative stereotypes about fat patients, viewing them as lazy, non-compliant, and lacking willpower. These biases operate unconsciously, affecting treatment decisions in ways doctors themselves may not recognize. Fat patients also face inadequate medical equipment. Blood pressure cuffs in standard sizes give inaccurate readings on larger arms. Examination tables have weight limits. Imaging equipment like MRI and CT scanners have size restrictions. When equipment cannot accommodate larger bodies, patients miss critical screenings and diagnostic procedures. Myth 10. Fat acceptance glorifies obesity. Gordon addresses the common accusation that seeing happy fat people somehow glorifies obesity and encourages others to gain weight. This myth treats fatness as contagious and happiness as dangerous. The underlying belief is bizarre, bordering on superstition, that pictures of happy fat people subliminally encourage others to become fatter. Fat people are constantly told they should feel ashamed that they do not deserve to participate fully in life until they lose weight, that their very existence is a bad influence on others. The idea that fat people should hide and express constant misery is dehumanizing. Everyone deserves to pursue happiness, wear clothes they feel good in, post photos, and live without apologizing for their body. A fat influencer posts vacation photos, showing herself swimming, hiking, and enjoying life. The comments fill with accusations that she is promoting obesity and setting a bad example. These critics cannot tolerate seeing a fat person who is not visibly suffering or attempting to shrink. The expectation is that fat people should constantly broadcast shame and efforts to lose weight as the price of public existence. The fat acceptance movement has existed since the 1960s, originally focused on civil rights and ending discrimination. It is not about health outcomes, but about basic human dignity and social justice. People of all sizes deserve respect, access, and the freedom to exist without constant judgment. Myth 11. Body positivity means feeling good. Gordon explains how the body positivity movement, originally a 1960s grassroots social justice movement focused on ending anti-fatness, racism, and ableism, has devolved into a watered-down version that just moves the goalposts from unrealistic beauty standards to unrealistic standards of physical and mental health. Modern body positivity often emphasizes feeling happy and healthy, which creates new standards that not everyone can meet. All of us deserve peaceful relationships with our own bodies, regardless of whether or not others perceive us as happy or healthy. The requirement to be constantly positive about your body creates pressure that feels as oppressive as traditional beauty standards. Some days you might feel terrible in your body. Some people live with chronic pain or illness. The demand for positivity erases those experiences. A disabled person in a larger body does not always feel positive about their body, which causes them pain and limits their activities. They face pressure from body positivity culture to love their body and feel grateful. But authentic feelings are more complex. They can work toward acceptance and self-compassion without forcing artificial positivity. Genuine body liberation means making space for the full range of human experience. The cooptation of body positivity by corporations and thin influencers has stripped the movement of its radical roots. What began as a fight against systemic oppression has become a marketing strategy that centers the feelings of thin people while continuing to marginalize fat people, especially fat people of color and fat disabled people. Myth 14. I do not treat fat people differently. Gordon points out an uncomfortable truth about bias. Too often, we think of bias as a conscious choice, a worldview that we must first consciously opt into in order to perpetuate. If we have not decided to be biased, we must not be. We cannot be, but because we are products of a biased society, we reproduce those biases unwittingly. Anti-fat bias is pervasive in our culture. Children as young as 3 years old exhibit preferences for thin bodies over fat bodies. These attitudes are reinforced constantly through media, comments from family and peers, medical messaging, and institutional policies. Even people who consciously reject weight stigma still carry unconscious biases that affect their behavior. A person considers themselves open-minded and unprejudiced. They would never intentionally discriminate. Yet when reviewing job applications, they unconsciously rate applications from fat candidates lower. When choosing a seat on the bus, they avoid sitting next to a fat person. These actions happen automatically, shaped by years of cultural conditioning. Recognizing implicit bias is the first step toward changing behavior. Research using implicit association tests consistently shows that even healthcare providers, therapists, and others in helping professions harbor strong anti-fat bias. The bias shows up in split-second decisions, body language, tone of voice, and assumptions. Addressing it requires ongoing self-examination and intentional efforts to counteract automatic responses. Myth 19. Skinny shaming is just as bad. People in thin bodies sometimes face comments about their size, especially if they are unusually thin. These comments can be hurtful and inappropriate. However, thin people do not face systemic discrimination based on body size. They can access medical care without weight being blamed for every problem. They fit in airplane seats and movie theater chairs. They are not denied jobs or promotions because of their size. They see people who look like them represented positively in media. Thin people who face comments about their bodies experience interpersonal rudeness, but not institutional oppression. The difference matters. Anti-fat bias is embedded in policies, practices, and systems that affect every aspect of life, from healthcare to employment to education to transportation. Equating individual mean comments with systemic discrimination erases the very real harm fat people experience daily. A thin person gets told they are too skinny and should eat more. The comment is rude and inappropriate. They feel hurt. But when they go to the doctor, their weight is not blamed for unrelated health problems. When they shop for clothes, every store carries their size. When they apply for jobs, their resume is not unconsciously downgraded because of their body. The comment does not reflect or reinforce a broader system of oppression. Understanding the difference between individual bias and systemic discrimination is crucial for effective advocacy. Both individual cruelty and institutional oppression matter, but they require different responses and solutions. Conflating them obscures the work that needs to be done to dismantle anti-fat bias. Myth 20. Anti-fatness is the last acceptable discrimination. This myth minimizes other forms of oppression by suggesting they have been solved or are no longer socially acceptable. In reality, racism, sexism, homophobia, transphobia, ableism, and other forms of discrimination remain pervasive and deeply entrenched. Anti-fatness does not exist in isolation, but intersects with and compounds other forms of marginalization. Fat black women face intensified scrutiny and judgment compared to fat white women. Fat disabled people face ableism and anti-fatness simultaneously. Fat, queer, and trans people navigate multiple forms of stigma. These experiences cannot be separated into discrete categories, but are interwoven, creating unique and compounded harm. A fat black woman applies for a job. She faces discrimination based on both her race and her size. The hiring manager unconsciously rates her lower because of racist stereotypes and also because of anti-fat bias. She cannot determine which factor weighs more heavily because they operate together, shaping perception in ways that are impossible to disentangle. Her experience of discrimination is not simply additive, but multiplicative. Dr. Sabrina Strings, in her research on the history of anti-fatness, has documented how fear of the black body and fear of fat bodies developed together. Anti-fatness emerged alongside scientific racism as a tool to justify white supremacy and colonialism. Understanding this history is essential for building movements that address the interconnected nature of oppression. Taking action against anti-fatness. Gordon brings her dozen years of community organizing and training to bear, sharing the rhetorical approaches she and other organizers employ to not only counter these pernicious myths, but to dismantle the anti-fat bias that so often underpins them. The book includes reflection questions and action steps at the end of each chapter, transforming it from a theoretical text into a practical handbook. For people in larger bodies, the book offers validation, language to describe experiences, and strategies for self-advocacy. For people in smaller bodies, it provides education and tools to become effective allies. The reflection questions push readers to examine their own biases and consider how they might be perpetuating harm even unintentionally. A thin person reads the book and realizes they have been part of the problem. They reflect on times they commented on other people's eating or praised friends for losing weight. They commit to specific changes, including not discussing their own diets, not commenting on anyone else's body or food, speaking up when they witness anti-fat comments, and examining their own unconscious biases. Small actions accumulate into cultural change. The book emphasizes that ending anti-fatness requires collective action, not just individual enlightenment. This means advocating for anti-discrimination laws that include weight, pushing for accessible medical equipment, challenging weight-based policies in schools and workplaces, supporting fat-positive media representation, and amplifying the voices of fat activists doing this work. Building a more just world. As conversations about fat acceptance and fat justice continue to grow, this book will be essential to ensure that those conversations are informed, effective, and grounded in both research and history. Gordon has created a resource that people can return to repeatedly, using different chapters as needed to address specific myths as they arise in daily life. The book acknowledges that changing deeply held beliefs is difficult. People are invested in the idea that weight is controllable because it feels safer to believe we have control. Accepting that body size is largely outside individual control means accepting uncertainty and letting go of judgment. This psychological shift is uncomfortable but necessary. Fat liberation is not just about fat people. It is about creating a world where all bodies are treated with dignity, where health is not equated with thinness, where people are not judged or discriminated against based on appearance. This benefits everyone by reducing the pressure to conform to narrow beauty standards and by dismantling systems of oppression that harm multiple marginalized groups. Your challenge is this. Choose one myth from this book that you have believed or perpetuated. Examine why you held that belief and how it shaped your behavior. Commit to one specific action to counter that myth in your daily life. Maybe that means not commenting on bodies or food. Maybe that means speaking up when someone makes an anti-fat joke. Maybe that means examining your own biases about whose voices you listen to and trust. Change starts with awareness and grows through action. Thank you for watching. If this video challenged your thinking and opened your eyes to the reality of anti-fat bias, subscribe to our channel for more transformative book summaries. Visit our channel for more books on social justice, health equity, and building a more compassionate world. Fat liberation is a justice issue, and justice requires all of us.